you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please have a seat. And once you're settled in, I'll have you tell us your full name and spell the last, please.
Full name is John Gary Gross. Last name is spelled G as in George, R-U-S-S like in Sam.
Thank you. Ms.
Thank you,
Eidner.
Honor. Mr. Gross, what is your current occupation?
A little closer. Thank you.
What is your current occupation?
Retired Deputy Sheriff.
And what did you do prior to retirement?
Deputy Sheriff, Buren County.
And how many years?
5 years.
5 years, and what did you do prior to that?
I have a total of 22 years.
Oh,
So you have to put that, you either sit up like that or move the microphone closer so the jury can hear you.
Is that better?
Just
Sorry.
so how many years total were you with the Van Buren County Sheriff's Department?
22 years.
And on January 7th of 2007, were you acting in your duties as Van Buren County Sheriff?
Yes.
Deputy, sorry. And were you called out to respond to a house fire on County Road 215?
Yes.
And do you recall approximately what time that was?
Can I look at my report?
Would it help refresh your memory to look at
It
your
would.
report? If you could just look at it and then put it down.
Approximately 1,530.
you could just look at the report and set it down and testify from after being refreshed.
Okay.
Thank you.
33 minutes. 3:30.
About 3:30 in the afternoon?
Correct.
And were you the first one to arrive, or was somebody else already there?
I was the second deputy on scene. Deputy Tony Evans was first.
And at that time, did your car have the ability to take some video as you were going into the scene?
Yes, anytime you activate and you're running on code and you turn your system on, it automatically starts the camera.
And in 2007, were those, what type of storage device did that hold that tape?
It was mounted at the ceiling towards the windshield in front of the car, and it was in a box, a metal box.
Was it VCR? Was it cassette tape? Was it flash drives?
I'm not sure. There was no VCR. It had to be recorded digitally.
Okay. Okay. In 2007?
Yes.
Okay. And I think before you came up today, or before you got on the stand, I showed you some shots, some still shots, some photos. Were those taken from your video camera from your car on your approach?
Yes.
Your Honor, I believe that we have a stipulation to admit People's Exhibit number 2. It is items 1 through 10. So 2-1 all the way through 2-10, they are photos.
We stipulate, Your Honor.
It's 2-1 through 2-10?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We'll receive those.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may.
So I'm going to have these with you so that you can kind of describe these to the jury as we go through them.
These are shots from my car camera as I approached the residents coming up the driveway, which shows obviously the residents engulfed in fire.
Oh, hang on just a moment. I think they got to get the big screen up for us. Okay, so I'm going to start out with then 1-1. What are we looking at here?
Yes.
And you can see by the bottom corner, if you look for the one with the 1 at the bottom.
Yes.
What is this photo depicting?
I'm sorry?
What is this photo depicting?
It's depicting me coming up the driveway to the house that I was dispatched to. That's obviously on fire.
I'm going to go now to the next one, 2-2. Same, just from a different angle.
Yes, I'm a little closer to the residence, and it shows Tony Evans' car to the right, the deputy's car to the right.
I'm going to advance then to 2-3. Anything different in this photo?
Not much different other than the fire is spreading relatively fast. I mean, you only
One, no foundation, and they can talk about how fast the fire is. He's no expert.
I think he's just making observations from the picture, Your Honor.
He can't. These are stills, they're not even video.
A layperson opinion, I'll allow it as a layperson.
I'm going to go to now 2-4. What are we looking at here?
Again, a closer shot of the house as I approach, with Deputy Evans' car to the right.
2-5. Anything different here?
The only difference here is obviously I'm closer to the residence and the fire is continuing to burn, and Deputy Evans is looking for equipment in the trunk of his vehicle.
Is it fair to say that these photos are a progression as you're actually going down the driveway?
Yes.
I'm going to go then to 2-6.
Again, a closer view of the residence as I'm pretty close to going to the location and stopping.
2-7.
Again, a closer view that shows Deputy Evans is still looking for equipment in the trunk of his vehicle.
2-8.
I'm very close to pulling in next to Deputy Evans' vehicle, and obviously you can still see the fire in the residence.
And I just want to point out the heading at the top of the picture, is that the date and time?
Correct. January 7th, 2007 at 1533 minutes.
I'm going to go then to the next one. This one would be 2-9.
Yep, this is where I'm fairly close to Deputy Evans' car because it doesn't show in the camera lens, and obviously again shows the residence engulfed in flame.
And then now finally 2-10, which then the time is listed as 3,400 hours. Is that correct? I'm sorry, 1534.
Correct. And this is where I'm pulling off the driveway to park.
So these photos are all within just several minutes.
Correct.
Once you arrived, what action did you take?
Just before I got there, Deputy Evans asked me to get the resuscitator mask for my equipment and bring it up to his location, and then he directed me to go with him to the one side of the house. I believe it was the north side, I'm not sure. And I didn't know why at that point in time.
So did you grab the mask?
I did.
And did you proceed then to the north side of the home?
Correct.
What did you see when you got on the north side of the home?
Saw a person laying on the ground that was obviously injured, obviously burned, and he was at that point breathing on his own, and we tried to assist as much as possibly could before the ambulance and the EMT people got there.
Did you make any decisions about moving him at that point?
Not originally. We started trying resuscitation and CPR. We couldn't find a carotid pulse, but he was still kind of gasping for air. But that had ceased pretty much. So we tried the CPR and the ventilating mask to try to stabilize him as much as we could.
At what point did you decide to move him?
I'm not sure who it was because we were busy with the burned subject. Somebody said that we need to move him farther away from the house because of the fuel tank that was close to the residence, and they were afraid there may be an explosion.
And do you recall how you moved him?
Again, I don't know who brought the particular item, but it appeared to be something similar to a hard plastic sled type container that maybe some person would use, like a child, to go on a sled, or possibly a person could use it to put wood in it to tow across the snow for you know, it was hard plastic. It had probably 3, maybe 4-inch sides on it. It was not long enough or big enough to put his entire body in it.
So did you assist in moving?
I did.
And did you assist in picking him up?
No, we rolled him on his side.
And got him, then were you able to get him into the sled?
We did.
And where did you move him to?
We moved him away from the house. I'm going to guess, as far as I remember, probably 50, 75 yards.
Was that towards the back of the house or the front of the house?
It was towards the back of the house.
You talked about using then the equipment, I believe you said the resuscitator mask. Was there anything else that was used to try to render aid?
We did try to use the AED defibrillator because we couldn't get a pulse. However, the burns were so severe that we weren't able to use the patches to contact his chest because they kept sliding off because of the fluid weeping out of his body.
So when you say it's the defibrillator, is that the machine that has the pads that stick on the chest?
Correct.
And those were the pads that would not then adhere to his body due to the burns?
Correct.
Did you continue to render aid then after you moved him?
We did.
Was he still alive at that time?
Well, we weren't certain. We were doing our best to try to stabilize him as much as we could.
Did you see the defendant, Linda Stermer, there at that time?
Did I see? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Did you see Linda Stermer there?
Yes.
Did you talk to her?
Very little at the onset because we were busy trying to help the burn subject.
When you say the burns were severe, like what was your observation of his injuries?
Well, I don't know how graphic you want me to get, but I can tell you that his ears were pretty much burned off. He had no eyelids. His lips were pretty well burned off. He had no hair on his body. The skin on his fingers and arms were deteriorating and sliding around. That's why we couldn't pull him out of the way. We had to put him in some type of carrier to get him away.
Do you recall how long it was that you continued to try to resuscitate Todd before then emergency and fire got there?
Probably an hour.
So you said you spoke very little to Linda Stermer in the onset. Do you recall what you had said in the beginning at the onset to her?
We had, while we were working on the victim, I asked her if there was anybody else in the house, along with Deputy Evans asking her. We had asked her a couple of times. She said there was nobody else in the house other than a couple cats.
Was there a time after EMS and fire arrived that you were able to then have a longer discussion with Linda?
Yes.
Do you recall approximately how much later that was, or?
I don't recall exactly how long between EMS and ambulance personnel got there. It was chilly. It was fairly cold, so we were concerned with her being hypothermic. So we put her in a pickup truck that was there, and I don't know whose pickup truck it was, but it was the closest vehicle in a safety situation. So we put her in there to calm her down and try to keep her warm, and I was sitting in there with her.
So prior to you getting into the vehicle, how would you have described her demeanor at that point?
I'm sorry?
What was her demeanor prior to getting into the vehicle?
Her demeanor?
Yes.
I would say at times kind of hysterical, kind of confused, also kind of quiet at times.
Was she crying?
Whimpering maybe, on and off.
So you said you got into the vehicle with her?
Correct.
And were you able to have a longer conversation with her at that time?
I had asked her if she could tell me what happened, and started the conversation. A lot of the time she was looking at the floorboard of the truck. I had to ask her a couple times. Sometimes she'd answer a couple words, and then other times she'd just be quiet.
Did she say where she was located when she first learned of the fire?
She said she was down in the lower level of the laundry room doing laundry.
Did she say where Todd was?
She had mentioned that Todd was in the upper level in the bedroom. At that point, I think that's all she said.
Did you talk to her about if there was a fireplace in the house?
I did. I asked if there were fireplaces in the residence, and she said there was 2 fireplaces. One was upstairs in the one bedroom in the upper level, and the other one was in the main part of the house. I then asked her if they were gas fireplaces or wood burner fireplaces, and she said there's no gas in the house. They were both wood burning fireplaces.
Did she say what happened when she was downstairs doing laundry?
She said she heard Todd hollering and screaming, so she ran upstairs to the main level of the house that was full of smoke. She then said she couldn't get upstairs because the doorway was blocked with flames and she couldn't get by there. So then she ran outside to tell the neighbor that apparently was there to call 911.
Did she say what door she ran out of?
She said she ran out the front door.
So she said she couldn't get up the steps, but she said she ran out the front door?
She couldn't get, I'm sorry, she couldn't get upstairs to the upper level bedroom area because that was full of flames. So she ran out the front door of the main entrance of the house.
Did she tell you if she saw Todd at all?
She said she didn't know where he came from at that time, but she saw him out in the yard.
Did she say what she did when she saw him out in the yard?
She said she got into her vehicle, her truck, and tried to drive around to get him some help.
Did she say she was able to get him help or where she went?
No, she said when she got in the van to drive around, she didn't know where he went. She couldn't see him anymore. And then when she finally drove around to the other side of the house, then he was out in the yard there.
Did she say what was happening with him at that time or what she saw?
I believe she mentioned that she was obviously concerned. He was hollering and screaming. She said, I know that he was hurting. And so I got down on top of him to try to keep him from hurting.
She got on top of him to try to keep him from hurting?
Correct.
Where was she when you first arrived in relation to Todd?
As I recall, she was with Todd, and Tony and I were trying to assist as much as we could, and we had to kind of push her away so we could administer what help we were able to do. And a couple of times she would come back and put her hands over his mouth and kind of have her face in front of his face like she was trying to help, I guess. I don't know.
So did she lay on him?
At that point, no. I think she was kneeling next to him.
But she put her hands on his mouth?
Correct.
Was she trying to administer mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, or was it just her hands?
I'm not sure. Tony and I were doing the resuscitation and the CPR. So I'm not sure what her actions were.
Other than you just seeing her put her hands over his mouth?
Correct.
When Linda was talking to you in the car, did she mention if Todd was clothed or on fire at that time when she saw him in the yard?
I believe she said that he was smoking.
Did she say anything about his clothing?
I believe she said that he had already tried to remove his clothing, rip them off, and that he was like smoking. Body was smoking.
Did you say he was what smoking?
His body was smoking.
Okay, thank you.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, did you say you're retired?
Correct.
How long have you been retired?
2013,
And how long were you with the Van Buren County Sheriff?
22 years.
Yeah. Let's go over some of your testimony, if we may. First of all, what did you do with the video of the vehicle?
I did nothing with the video.
You don't know what happened to it?
During that time frame, whenever we drove in after our duty, it would automatically upload into a system, into the office.
Okay. You don't know what happened to the video at all?
I have no idea.
So the fact that it's never been produced to us, you wouldn't know how that happened?
No, sir.
Okay. You showed 10 pictures. You were showing that, right, from your in-car video.
Correct.
10 pictures from 15:33 and 51 seconds, so 3:33, 51. That's the first picture, right?
Correct.
To the last picture, number 10, 15:34 and 00.
Correct.
10 pictures over 9 seconds.
Okay.
Can we agree that if you were on scene for how long?
Probably 2 hours, maybe 2.5.
And during that 2 hours, is your in-car video running?
Yes, it was.
So if we had a video covering 2 hours, we'd be able to see the progression of the fire, wouldn't we, from your vehicle?
I would assume you would.
Okay. You're not a firefighter, right?
No, sir.
You're not a fire investigator, right?
No, sir.
Okay. You wouldn't know how to calculate the speed of a fire, right?
No, sir.
All right, when you said it was a fast-moving fire, fast is a relative term, isn't it?
Based on the photo,
Fast versus slow versus a normal fire. Fair?
fair.
All right. So that's your subjective observation or opinion. It was a
Correct.
fast-moving fire compared to other fires you've seen.
I don't know.
All right.
I can't answer that question, sir, because all fires are different, so.
That's correct. All fires are different, and you don't know what promotes a faster fire versus a slower fire, correct?
I would think whatever's burning.
You don't know all the factors that are involved, correct?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay, including the type of ventilation or the amount of ventilation that happens, right?
Correct.
You do need oxygen. You do know you need a lot of oxygen to feed a fire, right?
Correct.
This time, this person, or this, Mr. Russ is not an expert. He's not a fire expert. We didn't admit him as an expert, so he's asking him expert testimony questions.
No.
It's beyond the scope of his knowledge.
It darn right is, and he said it's a fast fire.
I'm going to allow it as cross-examination to his comment about it being a
Thank
fast
you.
fire.
And if we had the video, we'd be able to see from the time you got on the scene until the time you left exactly how the fire was progressing. Fair?
Sure.
Now, you've testified that Linda Stermer, when you saw her, she was, as you said, hysterical. Correct?
At times.
Okay. And you've testified to that in past hearings, haven't you?
I'm sorry?
You've testified to that in past hearings, have you not? In this case, you've
Yes.
testified before, right?
No, I'm sorry. I did not testify in the last hearing.
May I approach? I only have one copy, Your Honor. Thanks. And then on the second page, I'm going to ask if you recognize your name.
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you testify in a hearing, sir, on January 6, 2010?
I was not called to that hearing. I have a report.
Are you testifying to our jury that on January 6, 2010, you were not testifying in a court hearing in this case?
I don't recall that at all.
Okay. You would agree with me, your memory would have been a lot better in 2010 than it is now about this fire, right?
Yes, sir.
And certainly, you would agree that your memory was a lot better when you wrote your report right around January 7 of 2010 than it is 18 years later. Fair?
Yes, sir.
You are trained as a police officer to write detailed reports, aren't you?
Is that a question?
Yes, I said, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You've been trained like that since the police academy, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
You want to make detailed reports and accurate reports, right?
As much as possible, yes, sir.
Because many years later, you might not remember every detail. Fair?
Correct.
Okay. So if we look at your report, and you're trained to include all the important details, am I right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You would have had a better memory of the details of this incident then than you do now. Fair?
Fair.
Okay. You have your report in front of you. Yes?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I want you to tell this jury, because you testified earlier that Linda Stermer said her husband was in the bedroom. Remember that?
Correct.
Okay. There's a page on here, page 2, that says interview with Linda Stermer. You see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want you to tell our jury where in this report that you made that's accurate and detailed and when the memory was fresh, where it says Todd Stermer was in the bedroom.
The detailed report came from the senior officer, which was Tony Evans. Mine is a supplement report. It just is a supplement to what his report was.
We're reading from the same report, right?
I don't know.
That's yours.
Where's that? The format's a little different.
Okay, same wording?
Without really going through it, I would say it's,
I just had a chance to look at your report.
okay?
Tell me where it says that Todd Stermer was in a bedroom.
And she said that she was downstairs doing laundry in the lower level of the house, and that Tom was in the upstairs in the upper level with the fireplace.
In the upper level with the fireplace. And just so we're clear, this is not a colonial house. It's got a lower level basement, right? Walk out.
Okay,
You know that or don't know that?
yes, lower level,
And it has a main floor, first floor, and then it has a second story loft. All right?
okay?
So when you're saying upper level, what you mean is the first level, the main living room area.
No, this is the upper level.
Okay.
There's two fireplaces, one on the upper level where Todd was, and the other one was in the main level of the house.
All right. You believe that Todd was in the upper level in the loft area then?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you were taking this report, she told you she was doing laundry, correct?
Correct,
In the lower level basement.
correct.
And Todd was in the main level.
No,
What you're saying, the upper level.
said she said it was in the upper level.
Okay. Do you know if there was a fireplace in the loft?
I have no idea other than what she told me.
She was doing laundry and she heard Todd scream, fair?
Correct,
Right. While she's telling you this is 2 hours, within a couple hours of her husband being dead, right?
yes,
And her having her house on fire, right?
correct,
You said she's hysterical, right?
correct,
She's also, at times, confused, mumbling, shaking, and not making sense. Is that right?
correct,
So she was, at times, incoherent because of what she'd been going through. Fair?
fair,
The one main point she told you was where she was when the fire started, when she heard her husband scream. Fair?
yes,
And that's in the lower level,
yes,
not on the same level as him. Fair?
correct.
Now, in this report, you talked about the information that you observed at the scene, fair?
Oh, that's a question?
Yes, fair.
Yes,
Is that
yes.
fair? Is that right?
Okay, correct.
All right, I'll start trying to ask it a little different then. And you also talked about the object that you put the Mr. Todd Stermer in as you transferred him from near the fuel tank up by the house a little further away, right?
Correct.
Okay. How many serious injury accidents, fires, murders have you been involved in your career?
Numerous.
Probably over 1,000 in a 20-some year career, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you have a great memory of every single one of those?
No, the only memories I have are images that I like to keep locked in my head.
Okay. You have testified in great detail about the object you said was a little sled, molded plastic, 3 to 4 inch size. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That must have been an important detail for you to remember it 18 years later in the context of the whole thing with Todd Stermer.
I don't know how to answer that.
Was that an important detail for you that it had 3 to 4 inch size and it was made of molded plastic?
It would just depict what type of carrier we moved him in, that's all.
Okay. Like you say, you had a lot better memory in 2007, right? January 2007 of this incident.
Correct.
When it was fresh in your mind. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us where in the report it describes this object as anything more than a little carrier.
That's all that's on here.
Okay. Before you came to trial, you prepared with the prosecutor?
Before I came to trial, I got my report to refresh my memory. It was 18 years ago.
Did you speak with the prosecutor?
Briefly,
To prepare for your testimony today?
somewhat,
Okay. And you've done that before, right, when you go to trial?
yes,
It's not your first trial.
no,
You prepare with the prosecutor so the prosecutor knows what you're going to say and you can talk about what the testimony is going to be. Fair?
to some extent.
That's what you do.
I'm sorry?
That's what you do to prepare for a trial. You're an important witness. You're an eyewitness here.
Okay,
So you prepared with the prosecutor to go over your testimony and how it was going to flow, right?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered. I think he's asked it 3 times.
No? Thank you. Your observations regarding Linda Stermer on the scene, it must have been pretty significant for you to suggest Linda Stermer had her hand over her husband's mouth when she was there, right?
yes.
Okay. Tell us where the significant detail is, sir, in your report of January 7, 2007.
It's not.
If it was significant, it would have been in your report, wouldn't it?
The significance of it is that we were trying to assist the victim, and she was in the way. We had to have her move out of the way.
Have you heard, you know how important writing detailed reports is, right?
Yes, sir.
Like we said, you've been trained since the academy on how to do it, right?
Yes.
Have you heard, and do police officers have a saying, if it's not written down, it didn't happen?
Yes.
All right. And you believe in that, right?
Yes.
All right. And it's not written, certainly not written down in this report, is it?
No.
It was cold, you said, right?
Correct.
If, you know who Steve Leach is, right?
I'm sorry?
Steve Leach, you know who he is?
I know who he is.
He's the Lawrence Township Fire Department chief?
Correct.
Or was? And he's going to be a witness here. If he had in his report that it was 32 degrees, you have any reason to quarrel with him?
No?
Okay. 32 degrees is the freezing mark, right? You know that.
Correct.
So Linda Stermer was outside. Do you recall the clothes she was wearing?
I don't know the exact amount of clothes that she had on. I can tell you that There was no winter coats or any heavy type clothing that I remember.
Fair to say that from what you remember, she was not dressed for the weather.
I would say so.
And you also remember that she didn't even have shoes on. She was outside in her stocking feet.
Okay, I don't recall that.
You recall 3 to 4 inch size of plastic molded, but you don't recall any details about what she was wearing. Is that what you're telling our jury?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I don't have any more questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ivey.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I approach, Your Honor? I'm going to show you what I have as your police report. And I believe you were able to read the first few sentences that Mr. Wolf asked you to read, but he didn't ask you to read the third sentence, and I think he stopped you, where it actually does talk about the bedroom area. Could you read that to the jury? After your comment, I think you read the first 2 statements.
I asked her if there was a fireplace in the upper level in the bedroom area. She said yes, there were 2 fireplaces. One was in the upper level where Todd was, and the other was in the main living floor of the house. I asked if they were gas fireplaces or wood fireplaces. She said that there is no gas in the house, that they were both fireplaces.
So you did actually put in your report that it was the bedroom area.
Yes, I did.
You just were not allowed to read that following statement. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
And could it be that you remember the details of the sled? Because that's associated with your mind in moving Todd?
I'm sorry.
Could it be that you remember the sled because you associate it with moving Todd?
Yes.
So as you're trying to lift up a man whose skin is falling off his body, you recalled that vividly?
That's the reason we used skid, sled, boat, whatever you want to call it, some instrument that we put him in, and we had to roll him on his side because we could not pick him up.
And perhaps the details of that sled would remain in your mind as you're lifting him up and trying to put him over the ledge of the sled. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you made the comment about how he didn't fit.
Correct.
Did that stick out in your mind?
Well, to clarify as best I can, I'm calling it like a plastic carrier with sides. It was not like a toboggan. It wasn't a backboard. It was something that you could slide across the ground for whatever purpose. I can tell you it was not as long as his body.
And you remember that because you were trying to put his body in it.
Correct.
Did you ever go into the house?
No.
Did you ever even know what level pertained to the house or where the bedrooms were located or anything about the house?
No.
You were only recording her statements as she was telling them to you. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I believe when Attorney Wolf was asking you if you remembered attending a hearing, you said no. Let me word it a different way. Do you remember attending the trial in 2010 and testifying at that trial? So do you remember when I asked you that question, do you remember testifying?
Ask the question again.
Do you remember testifying in 2010 at a trial instead of a hearing?
I do not.
You don't remember? You just have no memory of that trial?
I do not.
Okay, no, and that's fair. So sitting here today, 18 years later, it's not something that you remember in your mind?
Sorry. Yeah.
And again, how many times have you investigated fires, murders, crimes in your 20-year career? You said over 1,000?
I don't have an exact count, but I can tell you there's a lot.
And how many times have you actually attended hearings and different types of court proceedings for all of those that you've investigated?
Numerous.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
When you spoke to Ms. Stermer, where were you at?
Sitting in a pickup truck.
You don't know whose truck?
I have no idea.
Now, but you were trying to keep her warm, obviously, right?
Correct.
Because you were trying to avoid hypothermia, given the conditions of the weather, right?
Correct.
And the fact that she was completely underdressed for that day.
Correct.
You just said you've never been to inside the house, right?
I'm sorry?
You've never been inside the Stermer house. You've never seen any floor plans of the Stermer house.
No.
So if I told you there is a fireplace on the main floor, the first floor, any reason to disagree with me?
No.
If I told you the only other fireplace is in the basement, any reason to disagree with me?
Sir, can we have you move the microphone? I guess we're not picking up. Thank you.
I couldn't agree with you or disagree with you. I have no knowledge of the floor plan of that house. I've never been in it. All I can tell you is what Linda told me. There were 2 fireplaces, one in the upper level where Todd was and one in the main level.
Okay. But she did not tell you Todd was in the bedroom, isn't that true?
Yes, she said Todd was in the upper level with the fireplace.
Where the fireplace was. You've seen bedrooms on the first floor of houses, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if I told you the fireplace was in the living room and
I'm
that,
going to object at this point. He's already said he has no knowledge of the interior of the home. He's only recorded Linda's statements. He has no knowledge.
he insists that it's in the upper level in the bedroom.
I'll direct that you move on at this point. We've covered that topic.
Thank you. And despite testifying in a murder trial, you have no idea, you don't, even when I showed you the transcript, you don't even remember it.
No.
But after talking to the prosecutor, you do remember 3 to 4 inch side rails on some type of sled device, fair?
That's an estimate on my part.
But you recall that. Do you recall the color?
I'm sorry?
You recall the color of it?
I don't understand.
That device you're talking about, that sled-like device, do you recall the color of it?
Dark.
I don't have anything more for him. Thanks.
Anything else, Ms. Siderby?
We have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Jury, do you have any questions of this witness? Anyone? No questions? May he be excused from his subpoena obligations?
I would ask that he be excused, Your Honor.
Any objection, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, sir. You are excused. I'll take those exhibits. Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Siderby, you may call your next witness.
Dr. Richard Mersali, Your Honor, thank you.
Sherry, just so you know, while we're waiting for the next witness, the plan is to go until 4:30 today. This way, sir. No, over here, thank you. Sir, before you have a seat, if you raise your right